It is the pink elephant theory. If the guest wants a pink elephant, get them a pink elephant. If you can't find a pink elephant, get a horse, paint it pink, convince the guest it's an elephant. Do whatever it takes to ensure they're happy. That's it. Are they happy? We're back. I'm Chris Adams. You're listening to The Pink Elephant. Today we have the one, the only. It's a VIPER girl. Celeste is with us. Celeste, thanks so much for taking time out of your insane schedule. I know it's concert season. Football season has kicked back in, so you guys are nice and busy. So thanks for joining us today.
Of course. I'm so excited to be here and get to come on your podcast. I've had you on mine before, so I'm really looking forward to this.
I know it's, we've gotten to know each other over the past, I guess, a couple of years now. And, VIPER Girls it is a really cool thing. Something that I don't know that a lot of people know who you guys are, but for everyone that's not within, let's say, the LA proper area and the impact that you have, in LA and around, give everybody a little piece of what is VIPER Girls.
Yeah. So honestly, at our core, we are a bespoke hospitality agency, and essentially we do model staffing. So we staff anything from running the front door to the bottle servers, the promo models. We can do casting, anything that requires just a model or some sort of presence, some sort of liaison between a brand or an artist and their guests. That's really who we are at the core. But if you know us, we're a lot more than that. And really, we're an all-female team, and we create experience and hospitality solutions on behalf of brands and enterprise brands and big artists. And we're that guest relations portion to any event or experience.
I love that. And you were born and raised in LA, which is unheard of. So you're the one person that born and raised in LA. And I'm curious because now you have this company. You're one of the founders of this company, and you've built this brand. What was that process like? Because you started off, you were in the nightlife industry, right? And then you kind of transitioned that and found a niche. That was the foundation of building VIPER. So what was that process like for you?
Yeah, it was tough. We're about to hit 8 years in business. We'll be 8 next April. So still a few months away. But I think starting out, I was really naive, and I think that worked to my benefit. I was 19 and I was interning for a big nightlife promotion and production company. And what would happen is there was like a few interns in the office, and they would kind of just stick you at the front door. They would be doing this huge event. They would throw you at the door. But I had a really insane work ethic. So I would show up, before anybody else. I would bring coffee for everyone working. I'd be there at 7 a.m. And then by the time the door rolled around, let's just call it 7 p.m. So 12 hours later, I was like, oh, I don't look very good. I'm in jeans and I don't have any makeup on because I've been here all day and I have to run the door, and this is $1 million event and there's no process. They just hand you a paper list. And so the original idea way back when was just having girls come run the front door of these big events. But instead of having a paper list and looking disheveled, all the girls would be put together. They would wear all black. We would bring iPads. We would license out software. And then we could kind of be that middle ground between an event or an experience and its guests. Because one thing I had noticed was there was just no time really spent on thinking about how people were going to experience their first impression. And so that was really how we started. And we did nightclubs for a while and just mostly celebrity events just from being in like the LA scene. But what ended up happening is once I kind of started learning more about building a business, I really pulled off the nightclub doors and started moving into corporate partnerships or larger partnerships, which is how we then landed SoFi Stadium down the road. And so we've really transitioned the business from just being girls at the door to really this bespoke hospitality experience where we can kind of custom create an experience for your guests. But that transition took some time. I had to figure it out as I went along.
I think what you said some stuff there when I think about like the young entrepreneur, the person that's like, oh my God, I want to do my own thing. There were some points that you made. I think they're extremely important. One is you worked harder than everyone else. And I think that that's important. Like, if you want to do this, like, don't be afraid to work. No one owes you anything. No one's going to give you anything. So be prepared to work insanely hard. So that's one thing that stuck out. The second thing that you said that like kind of jumped out at me was the fact that you went into something, but you found a niche. Like you saw a gap with the
Yeah.
companies that you're working with that they didn't see it. They were just in the midst of their day-to-day job, and this is the way it was
Mhm.
done. And they didn't realize that there was a gap, but you found a way to insert yourself in a place that added value that they didn't realize they needed. And I
Yeah.
think that's so important for like new business owners to like realize, make sure that you're looking for that gap in whatever your business is to add value to it, because that helped that was a catalyst for you in kind of launching everything. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I've just always been the type of person where I wanted to find really that white space. And I know that, there's nothing wrong with creating your own version of something that already exists, but for me, I was like, how can we do this differently? How can we innovate here? And one of the things, back when we started, like I said, almost 8 years ago, and when I had been interning in the nightlife industry, I started probably almost 10 years ago. And it was just a different ball game. It was always doormen at the door, very aggressive. There was this culture of kind of like being demeaning to people at a nightclub door and kind of being like very abrasive and aggressive. And that was something I also didn't understand because I was like, what is anyone achieving by being like kind of rude at a front door? It just didn't make any sense to me. I'm just not that person. So I was like, okay, how can we do things differently? One, we can bring girls in the space because girls were only inside being bottle servers. I was not seeing girls at the door. Two, we can be friendly. I don't think we have to like insult people
There's nothing
just
wrong with
because
that, right?
like
It's still
like
okay.
they can't, yeah, just because they can't get into this nightclub. I don't think we have to like insult them while we're there. It was such a strange nightlife culture. And then the other thing was, I was like, I think there's also room for women to make more money without having to sacrifice, if they wanted to wear a turtleneck one day or if they wanted to be more conservative. Because when I had first started, it was really like, oh, you want to be a female in nightlife? Well, you have two options. One, you can sit at a promoter table or you can be a bottle server. And that was kind of it. And so that was really important to me to find solutions there. And I definitely think that, anyone else wasn't looking for them. And then we added on just like the technology side of it was they were printing out guest lists on paper. And I was like, there is a better way for this, you guys. And I remember I told my old boss, this was forever ago, I said, why don't we just get iPads and put, everything on iPads? And she had like a list of reasons why you could never do it because if all the Wi-Fi went out and all this and all this, and I was like, I promise you, I can solve this. So that was really how we started. We've innovated a lot since then and really expanded past just being just at the door. But that was the initial plan, was like, find a solution, find what's not working, make it better, and then grow from there.
Yeah, I love that. And now, I mean, you guys do everything from nightlife to, I mean, you guys control really everything from a VIP experiential standpoint at SoFi Stadium,
Hmm.
which, I mean, that's a small little venue. If for everyone that's not aware, a small venue out here in LA.
Yeah.
With every major concert that's going to happen happens there, slash sporting events. The Super Bowl was there last year, and you all have has you play a huge part in all of that. That's a
Yeah.
pretty big. I mean, how do you sit back sometimes? And it's tough because I've lived this too, where you're in the grind every day, and you're like, oh my god, you're going, and there's those moments where you're like, is this even worth it? Do you ever
Hmm.
sit back and go, you just told me that you're coming up on your eighth birthday
Hmm.
doing this. But as people talk about what you now do and what your company does, like
Hmm.
where you started to what you're doing, that is a massive jump in less than 8 years. Do you think about that sometimes? Do you allow yourself to smile?
It's tough. I'm really trying to be better about that because I am just like I'm so hard on myself. I swear I bully myself more than anyone because in my head, I'm like, I should be, further along or hitting these goals. And then also, I think because we had the pandemic for 2 years in my head, I didn't expect a pandemic. So I thought I would be further along. So I'm not great at like stopping and smelling the roses. It's something that I probably should work on. There will be times where we do something really cool and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like when we closed SoFi Stadium, and I was like, that's very cool, especially being born and raised in LA and being able to do something that's like really has a lot to do with LA and LA culture. That was definitely a moment for me, but it's not I'm not great at that. I'm always just like, what's next? What's next? So I have to work on that.
I know it's tough when you're in the moment of it, but I tell you, when you sit back and look at these things and you have these types of conversations and you start kind of looking at the list of accomplishments, um, and it's the crazy part is when I look at what you're doing and what you've done and accomplished. This isn't over like a 20-year period. It's not even over a decade. You're barely 8 going into this, doing things and accomplishing things that other companies haven't been able to do in the past 25, 30 years. No one's doing
Yeah.
what you do. Um, so I'll celebrate you a little bit for you. And the fact that, I mean, that's a huge accomplishment, and it's something that, you should be extremely proud of, because I see what you all are doing. I hear the rumblings of what's coming up, what's on the horizon, and it's inspiring to see what you're doing, and what you continue to push on. So I encourage you to sit back sometimes and celebrate what it is that you're doing.
No, I really do appreciate that because it is tough. And I'm always like, I think as any founder, it's so natural for us to be kind of in the past thinking about what could have gone better, and then also in the future thinking about scaling and what's next. And I think that I would assume that's common. I mean, maybe you experience
Sure.
that too. So it's something that I am working on, like mindfulness and being just right here, because I do it even in my day. I wake up and I'm immediately like, I have to do this, this, and this, or I'm thinking about tomorrow or whatever. So I am really working on like, okay, we're right here. Take it day by day. So I'm gonna get better at that.
So, all right, I have maybe a tough question, maybe not. When you look at being the CEO, the founder, and having to play that leadership role, right, and having to be the person that others are looking to for advice and direction, um, how do you see this, the next generation, the new worker, the one that is looking for their opportunity? Do you
Mhm.
find that there is a difference now than when you were in their position a decade plus ago?
Yes. 100%. You know, there are some differences. I don't know if they're good or bad, but I know like when I was coming up, when I was fresh out of high school, 18, whatever, I was just working. I would do whatever it took. I had two jobs because I had to pay my bills. And then I also had an internship because I wanted to grow my skill set. So I would literally go to one job, change in the bathroom because I had like a little uniform. I was like a hostess at a restaurant, go to this internship, change in that bathroom, go to the next job, maybe go back to Warwick or the nightclub that we were working at later that night. Change in my car if I had to. I was always the first one there, always thinking about what can I do, what can I contribute, how can I grow. And I will say that with like a newer generation that I experienced through like our hiring, I don't see the same work ethic. And I do know where it comes from because I have joined kind of like the conversation because I was curious for a long time. And I do understand that they're like kind of have this wokeness, I guess, that's like, we want to have work life balance. We want to do other things, and not just like grind, 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 which I do respect fully. But there's definitely a difference. And there's also, to be completely honest, I've noticed like a level of entitlement where things should just be handed to them. Or if they skip steps, if they don't read the instructions, it's like not their fault. It's like, oh, I didn't see that. It's just been a very relaxed process. Whereas if I had missed instructions, I would have been like, oh, that was my bad. I really would have taken responsibility for it. So there are a few things I will say that I have seen just as like a business owner. But like I said, good or bad, I don't know. Maybe there is merit to work life balance. I'm not familiar with work life balance, so I'm not qualified to speak on that. Maybe there is something there. Maybe they're on to something, and it just wasn't what I was brought up in. But I have definitely, there's a big shift. We hear some funny things.
Yeah. Um, Look, I think much like you, when I started in the industry, it was 100-hour work weeks were my norm, and you outworked everyone else to to hopefully get a shot at that promotion, right? And it's a different world. It's in a different environment we live in now. I think work life balance is a beautiful thing. I think that one thing I've really tried to focus on is perspective and making sure that I take a moment to make sure that I reflect on where I'm at, where I've been, where I'm going. And I think work life balance is it's also one of those things for me. I think you're similar to I in that I live an insane life. I am so fortunate to get to do what I do, travel like we do, go to the events that we get to go to. So I have the perspective in my mind of my work life balance is I get to do every day what most people save up all year to do once. And so my vacation, my life balance is I get to do this every day. So it's a different mindset for me, I think, than others might. And I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer, but I think it has definitely forced me as a leader, as a CEO of our company, and I imagine the same for you, is to figure out what's my approach? How do I make sure that I'm listening and I'm hearing what's being said, so I can ensure that I help them find that balance while still being a good steward of our business, right? That's the tough part, running the business side of, like, it's not about me trying to drive a fancy new car. Like, all right, how do we pay the bills this week and still have the balance and all those things? And that's just what I found.
I'm in the same boat, and I'm really big on, like, I would say my leadership style is I just give the credit, take the blame. Like, I don't, even when I see things that I disagree with or whatever, I know that I trust my team to where if they made a decision, even if I disagree with the decision, I trust in their intention in making it. And so when there is, you know, discourse or conversation about just work ethic in like a different way than I'm used to, I don't immediately discredit it. And I am always open, same exactly what you just said. I'm open to hearing how can we do things better? What do you guys think, could be improved upon here? And really for us, it's just best idea in the room wins. I have a management team, they're great, but we know if somebody new comes in and has a better idea, we're going to go with it. And we're always, especially me as a founder, I'm always open to innovation. I'm like, okay, how can we do things better? Because I do think that the Achilles heel of my previous companies that I worked for when I was coming up before I had VIPER was that they didn't innovate. They were stuck in their ways. They didn't want to hear it from a younger generation. And so even though I may be confused by this new, era, I'm definitely open to hearing it because I don't want that to be my Achilles heel where I'm like stuck in my ways and then we're no longer innovating. We're no longer pushing forward because the world is changing. And I can tell you right now, like, I don't know everything, and I know how much revolves around content and the creator economy, and I'm super like unfamiliar in that space. And so I really do try to just like listen to what they have to say also. And hopefully that helps push us forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And you talked about content. Okay, let's talk about my Achilles heel. Oh my God. I I think we've talked about this in the past. Like, I'm the person that I completely and fully understand how social media works, the importance of it, and the benefits of it. Um, Holy hell, I suck at it. Like, I just it is not in my DNA to just like, I watch some of these this that are, and God, I sound so old. I watch these young kids that are so good. Like, they just naturally know exactly what to do, when to pick up their phone, how to put, like, I'll watch them and I feel like the grandfather. I'm like, "Wait, what did you just push on your phone? Like, how did you get it to do that?" But I watch it's naturally just how they think and they operate. And so it's a very interesting transition from a business perspective, knowing the importance of it, um, but struggling to maximize and capitalize on it at the same time.
It's tough. It's tough for me too. I mean, I'm like grateful I didn't have Instagram in high school and things like that, but I am also like, okay, you guys kind of have a benefit because you guys grew up with this, so you know it so well. You know, TikTok is new for me, and I try my best, but I also can't spend a ton of time on it because I have other things that I just need to get done. And I think when you're a founder too, it's like you just have so much going on. And something that I always say when it comes to content, because I've been asked before, well, why don't you show us like days in your life more often? I'm like, because my day is me at my desk with in sweatpants with my hair up on the phone all day, proposals, emails, brainstorming, whatever. It's not content friendly. Like maybe I could try, to do that. But so I have like two sides, two opinions, because I see the benefit of it. I know how important it is. I know that it's a form of every business right now is that media portion. So I know that it is so crucial. But then the other side of it is like, I have to perform and I can't just like be on display for the peanut gallery. I actually have to get things done. And that doesn't always look super cute on camera. So I go back and forth and I am working on doing a better job. But I'm in the same boat as you. I'm like, it's tough. It's a battle for me. It's an uphill battle.
Same, same. I feel you. So, being a nightlife expert as you are, um, I think there's a transition that's happened in nightlife. And also being out on the West Coast, it's different now than it was 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. And what people are looking for, the type of experiences that they're wanting, and you've kind of seen that transition happen from traditional nightclub to more of a it's a dining experience that transitions to a club after. I mean, you see how well Delilah's done in Las Vegas. Um, and when I look at traditional nightclub, I still think at this moment, I see Las Vegas and Miami as still being those two cities that can get away with having like just an old school style nightclub that still do really well. Do you see that trend continuing to happen where it's a little bit more of God, I hate using the term ultra lounge because that's so 20 years ago, but it's almost come full circle again, weirdly enough.
I could not agree more. And I tell this to everyone because I have been through it and I'm coming up on a decade in the industry and I've really seen it and the transition of it. And I started really early. I started right out of high school. So we've seen the difference from like that private nightclub or, those big nightclubs. And then we've seen it transition into a smaller lounge nightclub. And then I think now we're seeing the transition to restaurant lounge because I don't think nightclubs, especially in LA, they're just not doing it. Every person I've talked to agrees. And I think a big reason too does have to do with social media. Um there's such an intersection there because right when I had started and was coming out of high school, this was like pre I mean, we had some social media, but it wasn't the same. And really, I think the reason that these like LA nightclubs did so well before was because celebrities would come in and it did two things. One, people didn't have their phones out, so celebrities could kind of let loose a little bit. People were not going to put them
Mhm.
on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. And then second of all, you had to go to these nightclubs so that Page Six could photograph you or paparazzi could get to you so that you could maintain your celebrity status. And so the door would be super tight and you'd have to get in and anyone who was anyone would be seen walking in and then it would keep if you weren't at the celebrity or A-list level, you were not allowed to come in, hence the doorman culture, because it was this exclusive thing. But now with social media, a couple things have happened. One, we don't see high end celebrities going out like that anymore because they know everyone has their phones out. And then two, a lot of people became their own version of celebrities through social media and didn't
Yeah.
really need to be, you don't need to be in nightlife anymore. You don't need Page Six. You don't need the paparazzi because you can just get on TikTok and do it yourself. And I really think that social media changed so much of the culture and people figured out like, oh, this isn't really, we don't need this. And I just think it was a trickle down effect. When you go to a nightclub, everyone's on their phones, people are standing around. People realize, do I want to spend $5,000 for a bottle to stand at this table while everyone sits on their phones? I just think the culture shifted so much. And now people want dinner, they want to sit down, they want the experience, and they want to lounge. But
Yeah.
I really like LA nightclubs are just not it right now.
Yeah, I think that I mean, even myself, like I'm looking for something that's more experiential from the standpoint of I think that the next generation has better palates. I think they're looking for really great dinners. They actually drink great wine. Like it's a very different atmosphere. I mean, the idea of 10, 15 years ago going to a nightclub and drinking a Negroni, people are like, what the hell are you talking about? To where now the 26-year-olds are drinking Negronis, which is an amazing classic, craft style cocktail. So I just think that the end result of what people are chasing is different. And I think it probably, when we talk about the influence of social media, I feel like you capture a better experience on those more intimate settings than these monster clubs where it feels like mass chaos on social media
Yeah.
versus something that you could really document.
Yeah. And I also think there's also been like subsequent trends in health. Like a lot of the younger generation, they don't drink as much. So they might have one or two really good
Yeah.
cocktails, but they don't want a bottle of just,
Yeah.
whatever vodka that they're just gonna throw back. And I think that's like kind of how it was before. You wanted to buy a bottle, whatever. And now this like newer wave is like, I want to go have a good experience. I want to go have a nice dinner, but I also want to go to the gym in the morning. And we've really just like seen that culture shift. And so it's really shifted away from nightclubs. And and then after COVID too, I think like we had COVID, then the economy kind of got hit. And I just don't think people were as interested in spending their Wednesday night at a nightclub, spending a couple $1,000s on a table. It just didn't have the same effect. It doesn't do what it used to do in terms of like social status or maybe, who you're rubbing elbows with. It just doesn't happen anymore. So I think it was just like a trickle down effect.
So transitioning now to all right. So the nightlife industry's changed. It's continuing to evolve and change. Talking about personal life, how do you live in this constant state of party, right? Even
Hmm.
even even if we're transitioning from old school nightlife to what it is now, it's still this. You're going out, you're mixing and mingling constantly. How does that translate to a personal life? And even from a relationship standpoint of how do you make that work? How do
Yeah.
you have to find somebody that's also in that world to understand it? Or do you go
Hmm.
the other route where they have nothing to do with that world because what direction makes most sense? Where have you
Yeah.
where have you or where have you not found success in that?
Well, I think for a long time when I started out, I was always going out, going to dinners, going to bars, taking clients out. I would, even if I took a client to drinks at 9, 10, 11 p.m., that was so standard, and then I would take them
Mhm.
to a nightclub and it was very normal. I was out a lot. Looking back on that, I'm like, how was I out that much? Because I've really scaled back on the late nights now. And I just continue to hire girls who are more out and in the scene and can represent the brand well. And then what I do mostly is right back to what we said. I'm the dinner girl. So I'm like, we're going to do dinner, we're going to do drinks, we're going to do whatever. That's great. I'm just probably going to be home by 11 as opposed to where we were kind of just getting started at 11, a little bit a few years ago. Um, so that's kind of how I try to maintain it is like I still go out, I just try not to do super late nights. And then in terms of like my relationship, I honestly will say that dating was really hard. You have to find the right person because I do know like in the past when I was single, when I was dating, that was a point of contention is why are you out this late? Why are you on an 11 p.m. drinks meeting with a male client and whatever? And the truth is it really was work. Like it truly was. But that was problematic a few times. So finding the right person and being able to have a dynamic of just like understanding this is my job, but then also at the same time transitioning myself out of those late nights and transitioning myself out of that constant party experience has been really beneficial for me and for the business. And I honestly think that anyone who works in nightlife should do that. That's just my opinion. And I don't think that my opinion will resonate for everybody, but I do think like as you get older, that like sounds so funny to say, but I think like evolving and like scaling and pivoting and moving into different directions is really beneficial. And the reason is because nightlife in major cities, LA specifically, can be a bubble, and you kind of forget that like there's a real world outside of it. And I remember when I was so deep in that nightlife world, I would just, my brain was just like, who are the buyers coming in tonight? Who's this? Who's that? And that world can get a little dark if you're too focused on it, because you're so focused on that like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. time frame. And you kind of forget that there's like a whole world out there that takes place during the day. And for me, scaling out of those like late nights and kind of moving into like corporate partnerships and just the daylight, so to speak, has been amazing for me. I would really recommend that to anyone who works in nightlife.
Yeah, I know on my side, I mean, Maricela, and we get to travel together a chunk of time, which is hugely beneficial, right? Um, that's for sure. The crazy part for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, is how much professionally the company flourished when I got things figured out personally.
Mm,
Like
yep.
you would think those two things are like, those run two different worlds, but for me, professionally, things came to light, and really started, I don't know, just running on all cylinders when I got my shit together personally. You know what I mean? Like I know that I don't know if that's the case for you or anyone else, but that was a huge thing for anybody that's potentially listening or watching. Don't underestimate the power of how much those two worlds cross a line and will determine how far you can push. So you got to get everything, you got to get your house in order if you want your business in order.
I completely agree. And I think that that's a point that kind of goes under the radar in the nightlife events world sometimes. Because I think that, like, when you're so focused on nightlife, like I said, you forget that there's like a day to day world out there. I've seen it happen a million times over again. And I'm not saying that you have to be the healthiest person ever, but I think we lose some of those healthy habits. You naturally sleep later, you naturally
Mhm.
are more focused on alcohol or late nights and whatever. And really, the best thing I ever did for myself was completely flip, my whole routine and everything. Start getting up super early in the morning, working out, or even just going for a walk without my phone, or starting my day on my time and not like chasing what's going to happen later tonight. It just made the biggest difference for me because taking care of me changed my mentality, changed everything, and I just really leaned into who I was. And I kind of I do see in nightlife, because it's such a bubble. I do see that people lose themselves in it, and it is, and then what happens is they end up later on not having a personal life. I cannot tell you how many, I mean, men specifically, but women too, would come into nightclubs in their late 40s, 50s, still single, no family, nothing to show for their life except all the bottles that they've bought, and it sounds like a sad story, but it was happening so often because people focus so much on this like party scene, social scene. And then you wake up one day and you're like, oh, what about the daytime? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that will only resonate if you're familiar with the industry, but I've just seen it so many times and I just didn't want that for me.
No, I hear you. And I have found, for me, I know how important mental space is. Like I focus so much on what I'm thinking, right? Because
Mhm.
my thoughts control my emotions dictate my behavior. And I don't think people realize how much that your thoughts start to dictate how you feel, good or bad, right?
Yeah.
And when you get in that funk and I'm this and I'm that versus with a flick of a switch, some one thing can happen that changes what you're thinking, which completely changes how you feel, which now
Yep.
changes your behavior. You go from that bad mood to good mood, and it's all driven by your thoughts. And the
Yep.
more that we can keep ourselves in a thinking about the perspective and how we think, it really drives our emotions, which affects our behavior. So all right, going into the tail end of this, I'm curious with every business and every company. I know it happened for us. I know we've talked, it's happened for you. Your company evolves. what you thought it was going to be on day one and this big vision you had. You sat down and you wrote your mission statement on a bev nap in a bar one night, and you had, this is what it's going to be, and you have this in 10 years they're going to do this. And then life happens and your business happens, and you start finding different angles, and it evolves. What has the evolution been like for VIPER? And is that evolution, it's continuing to happen, right? It's every day is a new evolution of what it's becoming versus what you originally thought it was going to be. How has that been for you? How have you managed that? Being okay and accepting the fact that what it's becoming is insanely cool, but it's not what you maybe thought it was going to be from day one.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so funny. I was actually just talking about this with somebody, and I was telling them that there's like this paradox as a founder because your clients and your team and everyone relies on you to deliver the product or deliver a service. But then at the same time, you have to be innovating, you have to be scaling, you have to be pushing boundaries as a founder, as a visionary. And sometimes what I found is like, when I've wanted to scale in the past or when I've wanted to explore new avenues, I've had trusted advisors or friends being like, no, absolutely not. Stay where you're at. And I never listened to them. I always pushed the boundaries anyways. And that's one thing I'm so grateful for, was the fact that I never listened, was the fact that I continued to say, well, what if this works? And honestly, if it doesn't work, it's okay too. But what if we give this a shot? You know, we started as just doing the door. Then we started with bottle service operations and brand ambassadors. And then we did casting for Kim Kardashian one day because they asked if we could. And then I was like, well, why don't we try also offering casting? And, you know, there's a lot of people who would be like, don't do what you're not good at, or kind of like stay in your lane. And there's merit to that. But I also think that it's important to grow. Like it's important to pivot. It's important to be open to new things. And that's really scary as a founder because sometimes I will find myself in this cycle of thinking, well, where do we go from here? Because where we're at now is not doing the job of what I needed to do for the next level. And sometimes I really don't know the answer and you just try things. But that's
Yeah.
the best thing. That's the best advice I can give is just try. And if it doesn't work, like it's okay. Nobody's like staring at you being like, "Oh my god, haha, that didn't work." It just we tried something. If it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But right now I'm actually in that place. I'm trying to figure out what comes next. What is our next version of VIPER? Obviously, we've had really good success being like model staffing, but I also think there's more for us. I think I've been in this industry for so long. I've had an insane vantage point. I know it so well. I feel like I can offer more. And I never have, and I've never really tried. And now I'm kind of getting to a place where I'm like, okay, well, what does come next? So I'm actually in that space for myself right now, and just trying to figure out what that next pivot is. And I don't know. I think it's normal. I think people look at founders and they think like we have everything figured out. And one thing I've learned from like being friends and having peers that also own companies and being in like groups of entrepreneurs is everyone is just trying to figure it out.
I can tell you, the minute you meet the person that says they've got it figured out, stop taking advice from them.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, look, the reality is if you've quote unquote got it figured out, that means you're not moving forward. You're staying
True.
stagnant because you've figured out where you're at, not where you're going.
Mhm. True.
And for anybody that is a, a true entrepreneur that's continuing to push,
Mhm.
um, it's probably never good enough. So you're always pushing for what's next, which means you don't have it figured out. And I think one of the things that we push on is failing doesn't make you a failure. That's part of the
Mhm.
process, right?
Mhm.
Anybody that's highly successful that says they've never failed, be very be scared of what's in their closet because something's
Yeah.
going to come to light that you do not want to know about.
So true.
And right, so it's okay to throw stuff against the wall.
Mhm.
I think what I've found is that I've been doing this long enough that I'm more strategic at
Mhm.
what I throw against the wall. I've learned how to fail forward. And it's such a cliche term, but I've learned how to do that. I've learned how to um, minimize your mistakes. When you make a mistake, I've learned how to pivot a little bit faster so it doesn't hurt as bad as it did in the beginning.
Yeah.
But those are things that's part of the day to day in the process of having a business and continuing to push and grow. And um, I couldn't be more excited for whatever you all have up your sleeve and
Oh,
what's coming next.
thank you. Well, I'm equally excited. So we will find out together.
Nice. So, all right, if people want to get in touch with you, find out what's going on in the Viper world, things you have going on, if they want to join your team, they want to pick
Mhm,
your brain. What's the best way to find you guys, get in touch with you,
mhm.
just see all things Viper?
I honestly rely on Instagram the most. So my personal Instagram is at Celeste Durve, and our company Instagram is at the Viper Girls. We recently just rebranded to Viper Girls, so I'm really excited about that. We have a new logo, and we're in our new era. So yeah, you can find us on Instagram like that, and then you can also go to thevipergirls.com if you want to take a look at our website.
Viper Girls are, if you're in LA and you want to know what's going on, this is you're listening and watching the person that you need to be following. That's for sure. Celeste, I can't thank you enough for hanging out, taking a few minutes to chat with us, drop nuggets of wisdom. I appreciate it. I thank you for your friendships. It's so great getting to spend time with you, actually off camera, and us working together on projects. And it's a lot of fun. So thanks for all that you do for EAG as well.
Oh my god, of course. You guys are my favorite to work with, and thank you for having me today. I love this.
Of course, again, thanks everyone for checking us out. You can find me on Instagram at Chris Adams underscore EAG, at Ellis Adams Official, or our website, www.ellisadamsgroup.com. Thanks, and we will see everyone next week.